And here we are. We should be live any second now. There we go. Looks like we're live, so about 5 seconds we'll catch up with the rest of the universe. All right, so they've updated a couple things. Welcome, everyone. We'll be talking about a few interesting things tonight. So I'm Dr. Staggs.
I'm Dr. D. How's everybody doing?
Hopefully everyone's doing well.
I don't
tonight.
know why I'm waiting for a response. I forget that nobody...
Right, the internet's not talking back. It's catching up with
Ben. Come on, Ben.
Catching up with the stream a little bit here because there's some issues with the connection bit rate, which I can't do anything about right this second. So we'll let it stabilize for a second here. There we go. I can hear you just fine, but the drop rate is pretty rough right now, so it's probably pretty choppy at the open, which is unfortunate. But
sorry people.
The internet has limitations.
Corey, I know you're gonna watch this later. We apologize for the quality. You deserve
very
better.
Likely you do deserve better, so next time I'll tell the internet to behave better. There we go. It looks like we should be maybe more stable now.
Or in the clear, maybe.
Yeah, or more clearish. All right, so one of the things we're talking about tonight, we can start off with the definitions, because I think that's really, really important. So you were just starting to say some of the differences between different ways that success is measured and or understood. So that's one of the things that, or kind of some of the differences between quitting, failing, and walking away, not bothering to participate in the beginning. So kind of expand on that a little bit. And that I think is a good starting point.
I think that maybe you kind of hit it a little bit before we even get into that, right? What do you consider success, right? Because this is a nebulous thing, right? It's success, right? Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants that. But what is it, right? What are you chasing? Do you know what you're chasing? Yeah. My definition of success is likely different than yours and everyone else's, right? Because there's all things that you're chasing. And are any of these things wrong? That's not for me to judge whether your definition of success is right or wrong, right? It's not for me. But the point of this all, right, where I'm going with this is you need to have a goal, right? Goals are good. Goals orient us. They keep us going in the right direction, right? And so having this idea of success is really, when it boils down to, it's really where do you see yourself and where do you want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And then you make a plan for how to get there. This goes back to a couple episodes ago, I guess episode 11, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Where we did our should you do PD, right? Should you do professional development, right? Is professional development a good thing? And it goes back to that, right? It's yes. That's an avenue by which you would gain success. Now, do you want success in your professional life? Do you want it in your personal life? How do you define that? That is a personal thing. And I would urge you that if you are saying to yourself, I want to be successful, look at what that metric means to you. Really sit down and think on it, right? Meditate on that and determine what that means to you, right? Personally, for me, that means, being able to help provide for my family, give my children a good life, right? But also be there and be part of said life, right? So it's this idea of balancing. For me, success is really balancing personal and professional life adequately.
Yeah.
Right. And if I can do that, I feel great.
And that is a hard thing to do, as a matter of fact. So that is the thing that brings with it many, many, many challenges. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting aspects of that. So I think a reasonable starting point, or as reasonable as we're going to have, is starting with a definition, which in the case of the Webster Dictionary, so the definition for success is not actually all that helpful, because it's the degree or measure of succeeding.
Okay,
thank you.
So
most helpful.
I've told
Use a
my
word to
classes this
define
before.
itself. Try again. Fail. You get an F from me.
This is my biggest thing. I hate it. I do it in class. I say to my students, I'm going to ask you this, and before you answer, do not turn around and say the word that I'm saying back to you to define that word.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to want to.
Fail.
You're going to want to very hard. Please,
Fail.
what is a thermal?
Yeah.
If you tell me, if I ask you what is a thermal system, and you tell me what's a system that has thermal components, I'm going to look at you, right, and I'm probably just going to breathe like in and out to try to calm myself down, because it just really. You're not answering the question.
Yeah, you're gonna as
but
I
anyway,
think
thanks Webster's Dictionary. That was
so I have a much better one here from
Urban Dictionary says
that one probably would be pretty interesting. So from dictionary.com I find a few much more favorable. Apparently one of the obsolete definitions for success is outcome. I think that's foolishness. I don't know why that definition is obsolete. In fact, maybe we ought to go about bringing that back as the definition. So the first one they give is favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors, the accomplishment of one's goals. Another one is the attainment of wealth, position, honors, or the like. The third one is the performance or achievement that is marked by success. There we go, defining it with itself again, as by
but at least that's the
honors.
third one. Like they're running out of out of things to say at that point, right?
But outcome is a much better definition there, and more specifically, measuring the outcome is a much more explicit definition there. So that's one of the things that I think is very interesting there in even just that word, because a lot of times when we hear success, it's very easy, at least in American culture, to think, well, obviously you're talking about like driving a Ferrari or something, right? Like that's obviously that's success. Well,
I think it's very interesting that when you're looking at the situation from an outside perspective at people, how you rate them being successful is in terms 90% in terms of their possessions and their outward. Yeah. I guess how they present themselves to you. Right. It has nothing to do with the substance of their person. Right. And we don't think about like when we talk about these things. Repossession rate of some of those things. One of the most famous videos. Why would you want to think about something so awful? Right. The one of the most famous videos for a long time involving a Ferrari was a guy that was getting his Ferrari repoed, and he just started going nuts, ramming it into walls and doing all kinds of crazy stuff and like trying to blow up the engine. He was literally trying to destroy the car. Like he was trying to drop it off of curbs and like just absolutely break everything that he could, like kick off the mirrors, and like he just literally went berserk, because he could not handle the thought that they were coming to repossess his symbol of success. And so that may very well have been a misplaced label or a misplaced goal, really, that he had, because he probably put everything that he had into that. And I don't think that the goal was misplaced. I think that the timing was misplaced.
It could be. It could have been pulling the trigger too early, and he, the same sort of thing that happens for. It's not just a situation like that. It may have been that he was a business owner and he was doing, selling stupid, snarky T-shirts on the internet or something, right? There are all kinds of crazy stories about stuff like that out there where people are successful, right? And we'll come back around toward the end. One of the last questions I put in the description. We'll come back around to the all the internet gurus selling courses, because I've actually found kind of the bottom of that barrel and figured out exactly what all of that stuff is.
Look,
so we'll get there.
I think you have to put scientific journals in the same category as those internet gurus, but we can talk about that later. Right?
Yeah. As I'm literally getting some kind of a spam call about elections or some other something here. So
hey, everybody, go vote.
That's right. Go vote.
In a couple months or now. Whenever you're supposed to.
Whenever you're allowed to, before they try and decide to shut down elections, which is not actually going to happen. So you really need to not also be worried about that.
Also, don't worry. 50% of you will vote for the person that doesn't win. 25% of you will vote for the person who wins. The other 25% of you won't vote. So
that's
fine.
Just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. So one of the things that the reason that I wanted to bring up this particular topic as a topic for tonight is I was driving with the family over this weekend, and as you know, it was a pretty rough weekend for me. So I was driving around and we had to go get some clothes for a photo shoot for the kiddos and things. So normal parenting things, right?
Saturday
very
stuff.
Normal sort of normal stuff. So I came across a Porsche Panamera GTS, and that's what the thumbnail is for this video. Porsche Panamera, it's regarded as a sedan for actual rich people, not like the people driving the base model Mercedes and things, especially when they debadge them so that you don't know that they drive the base model, but you know that every debadged Mercedes is the base model. So I don't know who you think you're kidding, folks. But anyway, so there's such a thing as
be proud.
Because I will make the claim that, especially with all the service costs and all the other things, the people driving around in the Mercedes and BMW sedans, all they're doing is setting their monthly lease payments on fire because they don't actually have any ownership of the vehicles they're driving. And so because they're leasing and doing some of these things,
cars a tricky thing, man.
Now you don't want to own
Cars
a German
are awful
car
investments
because they're genuinely terrible investments, and every used German car is horribly broken and very expensive to fix.
Do you know of anything else that you can buy? Right, so you as soon as you drive that thing off the lot, say 10 minutes, not even, you make it out of the parking lot, and you're like, you know what? I need to return this car.
This is a bad decision.
How much money are you getting back for that car?
You haven't even left the lot yet, and it's already too late. Yeah, that's
and
a fact.
You're already taking a super hit on that.
I mean,
so
the fastest
if you think
way
you're going to make money on your car by selling it later, you are on drugs, man. Or woman. You're on drugs, person.
Yeah, that's a real thing. The amount to, or the extent to which personal finance is destroyed by getting cars and stuff like that is truly remarkable. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing. Yes, we need transportation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an $80,000 Lexus or some crazy nonsense.
Well, if I'm going to drop 80 grand on something, it's going to be an RV.
You better be able to live in it, really, truly. So there's a lot to that. But anyway, that's also an interesting side of this discussion as well, because in the context of not quitting, because that's what inspired this whole thing, is the license plate on that Porsche, right, was DNT QUIT, don't quit. So the point that person is making is shove all your conversations about privilege and racism and all the other stuff that has no place in this country anymore. This is something that I have worked toward continually, and I didn't quit. I didn't walk away when things were difficult. I didn't throw up my hands and go, whatever, man, I'm out. Peace. I'm taking my toys and going home. I stuck with it until I got good at whatever it is that he does. Right? Doesn't matter whether that's selling real estate, whether that's maybe he's like the world's most dedicated insurance broker and he's the best at it, right? You don't know, but what you know is that's a license plate that he didn't just, come to accidentally, right? So the point there is it struck a chord with me, because there is a mentality that is rampant all over everywhere right now, and it's fueled by all this discussion of racism and all the other things that are attempting right now to divide and tear apart the very foundational fabric of our country, which nobody has time for. Nobody should be paying them any credence at all. The amount or the extent to which we are being divided is absolutely terrible. Instead of, like you and I have suggested in this time, instead of sitting around and watching the news and being depressed and hoping for the best, you and I are doing some kind of major things behind the scenes to try and set some things up, some dominoes up, in order for us to be successful in a way that we can turn around and employ other people in the very near future, rather than some sort of long distant far off pipe dream. This is something that we are undergoing, this self-directed personal development to a very high degree, in order to get all the pieces put into place to make some big things happen, so that we can become those people that solve problems for others and are able to employ other people stably. And so that is a big paradigm shift from sitting around and pointing blame at others and all of those things. So this all ties back into whatever it is that you're doing. You don't have to be, just like we talked about in the personal development episode, you don't have to be locked into one specific thing your entire life, especially if that's not the thing that you're interested in. You can do a job to be paying the bills while learning how to set up the thing that you really want to do for a living. And that's
I think the thing that deters some people, though, is that that's uncomfortable. Right?
It is.
It's uncomfortable, but that's, what else is uncomfortable? When your teeth come in.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember it. Based on my kid's reaction to it, it's a painful experience. And I can imagine that a bone slowly creeping its way through your gums. I mean, I nick myself with the floss, and that I'm right, baby. Okay. And so,
yeah.
My point is, personal growth is painful. If you break a bone, it hurts when it grows back. That's what happens. That means that it's healing. Healing hurts.
It does.
All right.
It does. And it doesn't matter whether it's weightlifting, doesn't matter what area it's in, if it's sports, if it's you're studying so much that you literally feel like your brain is swelling and you can't formulate words and things. The reality is you tax the biological systems and you're going to have to pay some sort of a price for that. But it's
muscles grow by you making micro tears and letting them heal. That's how muscles grow.
Yeah. That's
overly simplified, by the way. I realize that's overly simplified.
It is overly simplified, but the point is you have to deconstruct things in order to build them back better, stronger, etc. And in order to do that, you have to not quit, and that's the whole theme of this episode. So we've highlighted the point that there's a difference between quitting just because, oh my gosh, this is hard, and quitting because, forget this, I'm fed up, I'm out of here, I don't like the people I work with, or whatever.
So I mean, there's right reasons and wrong reasons to do everything.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not here to tell you that quitting is universally bad. Okay. If you're in a spot where you feel you're undervalued and underappreciated and you're not getting what you need, you should quit. Okay. Or at least start looking for something else to do.
Right.
Maybe don't just throw in the cards.
Yeah. Don't
quit.
So
you shouldn't burn any bridges. Right. You shouldn't burn bridges either when you're, because even if you didn't have a good time at your previous place of employment, right? Even if you find that you had a really bad experience, that's still super valuable. Okay, because bad experiences teach you. When you first get out of college, you literally know nothing, on the most part, about what the workforce entails. You might have had an internship here or there, but it's really not the same thing. And once you get your first real job, you will learn very quickly whether it is something that you like to do, or whether it is something that you're doing to pay the bills, or whether it's something that you can't wait to get out of so you can do the thing that you actually like to do, right? And every bad experience is positive in the sense that you have learned a little bit more about yourself, about what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And you understand the opportunities that you are looking at, and you understand what they entail and what is expected of you, right? And so instead of going into something blind like you did the first time, you're armed with some knowledge, right? Many people call this experience learning. And I wouldn't want to call it that, because I'm not going to assume that learning goes on.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure that's a highly inflammatory and offensive word these days. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, it goes back to our idea presented a couple episodes ago about always be learning. You need to always be learning new things. There is such a thing as a point where you can come into a situation where you are compromised, or your personal values are compromised by something that a company is doing. They're just focused on get the product out and we'll fix it later. Well, yeah, but if you don't fix this problem, like, there will actually be people that get hurt, so you can't put this product out. Well, you just need to be quiet and do what we tell you to do, kind of thing. That's obviously a bad sort of situation that you need to, that in that case, you probably need to look for alternative means of employment, because you don't want your name on the thing that turns out that was going to hurt people all along.
But again, very rarely would I ever advise anybody who asks me to jump ship without having a backup plan.
Right. Yeah, you need to, rarely. And that's. I mean, there are some situations that are super inflammatory that you should,
obviously, you should get out of, but those are not standard. Those are not standard issue problems.
Right.
There are. I'm not trying to downplay it or be rude, but for the most part, you should you should never leave one opportunity until you've set up the next place that you're going to go.
Right.
Until you've at least seen where you're going to land.
You need to,
don't jump out of the plane without looking.
Yes, okay? you should.
Especially if you don't have a chute.
Right. You should probably also make sure that that's strapped on, because otherwise bad things happen. So the difference between being forced out of a company or an organization and just walking away because you're frustrated. I have a number of people that I know that have that sort of mentality that's so toxic of, well, I walked off of this job because I didn't like the people that I was working with or something like that. But there wasn't a follow-up plan. There wasn't an anything after that. There was just, well, I had to quit. Well, okay. You didn't have a plan, you didn't have a follow on to that, like you didn't have anything lined up. You didn't bother thinking this through.
If you are going through life right now, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but I'm going to say it. If you are going through life right now thinking that everybody that you meet is going to like you unequivocally for no reason, you're wrong.
You've had 100%. A little too much of your own Kool-Aid.
People, not everybody is going to like you. Not everybody is going to think that you are the greatest, and not everyone's going to agree with your mom who thinks that you're the best person in the world. Okay? Right. Just as an aside, your mom has to think that because she's your mom. Okay? That's how it is. Yeah. You are going to rub people the wrong way. People are going to rub you the wrong way. You're not going to get along with everybody. Not getting along with somebody is not an appropriate reason to quit. Because if you do that, you are allowing that person to win.
Yeah.
What are you allowing them to win? Life.
Yeah.
Because they got to keep their job that pays their bills. And what are you doing? Nothing.
Yeah. And that's another very big distinction that I think needs to be clear, is the difference between you as an individual looking at that and saying, I have to find something else. I just can't do this anymore. And having somebody make it seem like they're pushing you out. Like there's a fine line there of, you need to learn how to master your own pride and sort of the energy that you bring into that situation, right? And this is less from my apologetics background and more from the martial arts side, is especially in like a contentious situation or something, right? In a situation of a fight, fundamentally there are at least two people bringing energy into that altercation, right? And so depending on what each side does, things can either escalate or things can be de-escalated. And there are times when there are folks from some cultures where it is very normal for them to escalate and get in each other's faces, and that's what's expected, right? And I've had a number of experiences with that, even with a number of students that I've had, for instance. But because I understand that aspect of their culture, and I can get back in their face in the same manner, we build a respect and rapport to where they still will come back and seek guidance and ask me questions. They understand that it's not a personal thing. Other students looking on would be like, what is happening right now? But the reality is, I've learned, because of some of the experiences like this earlier on, where if I didn't match and exceed with the same kind of intense energy, debate and conversation, they wouldn't listen. And you have no respect. You have no grounds with which to have any kind of a meaningful relationship with them, work or otherwise. And so there are other groups that will be very, very withdrawn and are kind of the polar opposite. And so each group of people is going to be a little bit different. And there's so much that you have to learn and experience. But in that process of learning, you're gonna make people mad. And the fact of the matter is, you can't be tolerant to all of it.
People dynamics, right? I would say you can't be afraid to offend people, right? And that sounds weird to say, but this is what I mean. It's not that you're going out and looking to offend people,
right? But
you don't know everything about somebody's culture, right? So you are going to say something stupid. And you're going to put your foot in your mouth. How you handle that is really what shows your character.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can say, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, I would like to learn more about your culture, right? Then that's fine. But, don't be afraid to do that. It's worse for you to not say anything, right? And let yourself be steamrolled than to offend somebody. And I think that kind of ties into one of the biggest things in my mind, which is, if we're talking about not quitting, you can't be afraid to fail, right? You cannot be afraid to fail.
Yeah, I 100% guarantee you, without knowing anything about that guy's story, the guy driving that Porsche, 100% I guarantee that guy or girl has failed. Probably not once, not twice, not 3 or 4 times. That person may have failed 7 or 8 times to successfully start whatever business they're in now. Right.
Let me ask you this, right? What is in order to get into the Hall of Fame for baseball, what does your batting average have to be over your career? What is the bottom? What does everybody consider being like, oh, those are Hall of Fame numbers? When people say those are Hall of Fame numbers, what are they actually saying? Do you know?
Yeah, for me, offhand, I don't actually know what the stat is for baseball.
It's 300. If you bat 300, you are a Hall of Fame batter. That means what? That means that 30% of the time you get on base.
Yeah.
30%. And that's getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That means you have failed 70% of the time, and you are still among the all-time greatest people to have ever played baseball.
Right.
Think about that. Think about how staggering that is.
It's a significant number. And that's, actually, that seems about right, because I think, come to think of it, I had a good friend who is a longtime friend of the family. He's an officer now in New Mexico. I think he was on the path to playing pro baseball, or on the path to play pro baseball. He was playing for the Isotopes, and I think he had he was at the time somewhere around 270 or something like that. He was doing like really, really well. And so that he was in the running to become very, very good. What he ended up having to do was walk away from that in order to take the job with the state police, in order to take care of and provide for his family, which was growing. That was a very, tidal shift in his background and in the direction that he thought he was going. But he did that in order to take care of the family. So that's not something that is quitting in the way that we're talking about here. That is resigning a position in order to reevaluate what is success for him specifically. So that's one of the things to kind of keep in mind. And it looks like we're chopping around on the bit rate right now, so there's a little bit of buffering, or there will be in a few seconds. So yeah, that's the internet is frustrating. The COVID internet is fundamentally broken, so I'm sorry I can't do anything about that. Out of all of my work colleagues, I've had one of the most reliable,
the bit rate is not very good,
and consistent internet connections out of everybody, actually, because I've not really dropped out of meetings and stuff.
It might be mine.
So no, I think mine has been, I've been keeping an eye on the bit rate, but I can't, reach into the internet yet and change that, which is frustrating. So not yet. As soon as I can reach through the internet, one of my first superpowers I need to develop is reaching through to slap people, right? That's one of the first things I need to be able to do when I can reach into the internet, because a lot of people need to be slapped around.
Here's a good idea for a product. Sorry, sidebar. Here's a good idea for a product that actually solves that for you. You sell USB port hands,
face slappers,
face slappers, and so
I like it.
White elephant gifts, man. White elephant gifts.
Right. That would be a great white elephant gift, a USB face slapper. I like it.
Yeah, and you set it up so that it uses your microphone, and anytime it triggers off of certain words, and it will slap you in the face. Like, it's used as a behavioral modifier.
Nice. I like it. I like it. We need to patent that idea immediately, before the Chinese get it, right? This is on YouTube. Who am I kidding? The Chinese already have it. It's too late. It's gone.
They had it before I said it, man.
Right. Probably.
Then we develop a Stooges one that actually pokes you in the eye like this whenever you do something stupid.
Nice. Do we also develop a Stooges defense?
Yes, obviously.
Nice. So
we don't sell them in pairs, though. You have to sell them individually.
That's right.
That's the business model.
Yes, that would be the business model. Well, that would be the Gillette business model, and it works for Gillette, so it should work everywhere else in the industry, right? So, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've been most surprised by. And so one of the other things that I've seen is, especially because of some of the stuff that I'm doing in terms of personal development, in the kind of the trading space, there are so many different courses and things out there being offered by internet gurus, so many different online courses. There's everything from in part of this kind of research that I've done to get to the bottom of how all this stuff operates. I have figured out that there's all these different life coaches, and there's all these different groups of people that are developing online training courses in order to give each other different kinds of certificates and things, and so they're attending some kind of webinar online. They all have these different processes, and there's sales funnels and all this other stuff that happens. The bottom line of that whole line of thinking, and that whole sort of rabbit hole all the way down to the bottom of the internet, is the idea that people want to learn, especially if they're learning from someone who they think can lead them to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? So all of these different gurus are happy to sell you, and it's everything from different kind of life coaches, mentor sessions, the Tai Lopez-y kind of guys, a whole bunch of others. There are so many of these different groups and gurus and all of these different folks that it's very hard to figure out who is telling the truth and who is not telling the truth. Well, most of them at best are telling you a partial truth, absolutely at best. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell you the idea of how to do something in order to, usually most of it is around making a side income of some sort, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's building an online business with Amazon or, any kind of other thing. There's a lot of ideas for online businesses and how they should work. So there's just literally no end to those particular rabbit holes. It would be nice to say that there was, but the bottom line is most of them are just going to try and pull you into a position where you feel like you should spend the $200 or the $500 or whatever for their next step of their course, and then they have another $1,500 mega course after that, and then they have a $3,000, $5,000 whatever super mega ultra course, right? You even found this for the personal development stuff, looking at PE prep, right?
Yeah,
and it's not
if you got
just
a spare $3,000, you can take the class, man. That's
right. But that's a very real thing. And so making money on the internet using these methods.
But I want to pass the test so I can have a spare $3,000.
Right. Yeah,
I have a proven system for passing that test, and I can guarantee you that you will pass it your first time, or I'll let you take the class again for free.
Yeah. It would be a nice thing to have that. Man, the internet connection is chopping around hard, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. That's super frustrating. So this is the stream that the internet doesn't want to take because it can't handle the truth. So we're going to attempt to finish
the internet's trying to quit
stream.
on us, but we won't let it, guys.
The internet is literally trying to quit right now. The internet
It is proving our point right now.
The internet is attempting to fail miserably. So the bottom line of all of that stuff with all the courses and things, you can learn genuine real things from some of these courses. In a lot of circumstances, you don't actually even have to pay for a lot of this content because there are a lot of good options out there. But there are so many things that you also need to be willing to focus on. You need to focus on, ultimately, the stuff that we come back to, especially as professors, is focusing on the fundamentals of whatever it is that you're doing. Get really, really good at the fundamentals, and you can get fancy later with all the other things, but you're always going to have to be able to do the analysis, figure out, solve the problems from the fundamentals. If
you know how to do things at a base level, right? I'm going to use coding as the best example here, right? My code might be 200 lines long, but it works. Mm-hmm. Yours might be 20, right?
Might be far more elegant. Right.
Right. I know mine's going to work, right? So the other analogy is, right, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could drive a screw using a hammer.
Yeah.
Is it optimal?
Work very well.
No.
But it's been done.
But at the end of the day, if you ran out of nails and all you had was a screw and you had to hang a painting and all you had was a hammer, you could do it.
Yeah.
It's not the best idea. So have the right tools, right? But I guess it's a bad analogy, really, but the point is having a good base level fundamentals. Even if you haven't done coding in a long time, you can still come back to knowing the basics and chain it together, right? There's a reason why people say it's just like riding a bike, right? You don't really ever forget how to ride a bike once learned,
Yeah.
right? I haven't ridden a bike in years, but I guarantee you I could do it right now.
Yeah.
No problem. No questions asked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Riding a bike
maybe
is
not
is
right
a fundamental
now,
thing of balance, right?
I think it's still 105 degrees outside,
it's
or 110.
300 degrees outside. I'm not going outside right now.
Yeah, no.
Why would I leave my air conditioning to go into the oven?
Right. Yeah, that seems like a dumb idea. Yeah. So
I have an oven inside. I'll just do that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. There's there's so many things that you can benefit from, and so long as you're focused on the fundamentals, you can add to your tool bag really, really easily by even, in some circumstances you can get some gold nuggets here and there, and that's essentially what I've been doing in some of my own PD right now, is trying to mine some of those gold nuggets. And like I was telling you earlier, we're doing fairly well with the win rate at the moment. That because of what we've been doing, what we've been learning, how we're learning to analyze and make decisions, it's the same as with anything else. With any business, fundamentally, with anything that you're doing, you need to kind of understand, and then you need to not just understand, but you need to identify and mitigate or limit risk. Once you have identified and limited or mitigated risk, you can work on executing a plan. By executing a plan, that's where you actually achieve something meaningful. So that's one of the, I think, hard parts about all of this is you do still have to have a plan, especially like we were talking about, if you're in a position where you have to change organizations or whatever else. You've got to have a plan. You've got to limit risk. There's a lot of different things that risk means in different circumstances. So your answer to what risk level you're willing to take and what that actually means is going to look very different if you're just in your first job versus if you're married and have 4 kids.
I think something that my wife and I often say, right, is, if we didn't have kids, or if I was, your level of acceptable risk goes up, right?
Yeah.
The less that you're responsible for. When it's just you, right? If you're a single person and you're in your 20s, I'm not telling you to jump off a bridge or anything, but you can handle a little bit more risk, because you don't have to worry about, well, I have kids who need clothes. I have kids who need shoes. Right. Well, what if they don't have shoes? Well, they don't have shoes, then somebody's going to call up CPS and they're going to take my kids away from me, because that's negligence, right?
Yeah. You're
responsible for other people. You can't just do what you want. Now, you can't really just do anything that you want anyway in a society, because it's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right. But you are much less beholden to others when it is just you. So as you grow and as you develop relationships and as you build your life, right, your level of acceptable risk comes down, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. But it really comes back to is, you need to identify what is your end goal, right? What is success to you? When you look back on your life, when you're, old and retired, and I don't even really know if that will ever happen to me, being retired, because I don't see myself sitting very, very well.
Right.
But
we'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah. But when you're an old person, right, and you look back on your life, you need to be able to say to yourself, I truly did everything that I could to be happy, with who I am right now, right? And I would argue that ultimately success is being able to look back on your life and looking at your failures, looking at your mistakes, accepting them, seeing that they brought you to where you are right now and allowed you to actually do the things that you wanted to do at some point.
Yeah, that the mistake process and learning from that is a huge part of this whole thing. So it's just part of what you need to be able to accept. And yeah, especially I like that part about being willing to accept more risk, especially if you're younger. But one of the other things that you mentioned, and that's very pertinent to this specific topic for a bunch of different reasons, is the idea that millennials especially, so you and I are in the group of people that is often accused of being
it's
sort of
we're not. It's
unwilling to work hard. I know you're going to go down that what the Zennial
it's Zennials. Okay,
right?
That's the Zennials
being accused of being unwilling to work hard and being wanting to, retire early and all this other stuff. And so people get this idea of, a scene in like Portland, Oregon, where you have a bunch of like 30-year-olds in bars or something, right?
Well, no, it's not even that. It's just I just don't understand how you can just accept everything just being handed to you. Where do you place the value on something if it's just given to you, right? Like, now, and I realize that when you're a child, everything is really just given to you, right? And,
yeah.
But there's a thankfulness that you need to have, right, for the things that you do have.
Yeah.
Right. It's not bad to want other things. Right. That's not a bad thing. It's bad if that starts to control your life and you're all about just, I need that new Xbox, man, and I will do anything to get that Xbox. Right. That's not really, but like it's good. It's good to have goals. It's good to strive for something. Right. It's good to work hard.
Yeah.
Right. But and this whole idea of, well, I want to retire by the time I'm 30, you're going to live for, honestly, in this day and age, probably 50 more years. How much money do you need to live for 50 years if you're not working?
A fairly, a pretty significant amount of money, and that's going to be a little different for every person. And so without going,
assuming that you don't have any major medical issues that you need to take care of, because I've heard that sometimes old people end up needing repairs.
Yes, that does happen sometimes.
Like hips and knees, and your joints wear out, things like that.
Yeah, a lot of those. And that's, so one of the key differences though is, for instance, for you and I, because this conversation can and will come up in a number of other areas, I'm sure, but for you and I, for instance, retirement, quote unquote, if either of us were in a position to do that, for instance, in the next 5 or 10 years, right, depending on how some very specific things go, that could be, for instance, an actual real thing, because of a number of different factors lining up correctly. If that becomes the case, then retirement, quote unquote, for you and I, that doesn't look like, at least for me, that doesn't look like, getting an RV and, parking it in a KOA in Florida somewhere, right? That's not,
no.
That's not what we're talking about.
No.
that would look like for me, more ideally, is having the ability to work on the kinds of things that we're working on in the background, where I would have the opportunity to employ people to do some of the things that I'm interested in doing.
So I just, when I think about it, like, I know I've been basically on vacation for a week right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't really done much other than sit around in my house because it's hotter than heck.
So freaking hot. Yes. It's so bad.
It's like literally the worst week of the year
at midnight
to do vacation.
Yes.
But
it's terrible.
But it was a mental break. I didn't even really fully take all the time off, right? Because I showed up at a meeting during that week. But I mean, that was more of a social call than anything else, really, at that point. I just don't see myself ever just, I mean, I'll take like a week here or a week there. I will take vacation. Right. But I know myself, and I just don't think, especially when my kids get older and they're no longer, under my roof, right? I would probably just continue to work, right? And just,
you will need to have projects, but there would be a big difference in being able to pursue the projects that you wanted
things
to,
that you want to do versus things that you freedom, right? And that freedom is a form of success as well, right? Being able to pick and choose what you want to do. Now that
yes,
that's where it's at.
So that for me is the closest that I can actually define success, is being able to pick and choose what problems I want to work on and not have to worry about some of the other things, right? Because I enjoy the solving problems, the harder the better. But being able to do that in a free and open context, at my whim, that would be what I would consider complete success. So that's the thing that I'm going to work toward, and that's why I've been doing all of this additional PD and all this other stuff, not unlike yourself. So that's the idea. Is this is not something that I'm just spouting off to say, do as I say, not as I do, because I'm doing way out ahead of actually saying anything about it, right?
I think that the one of the things that kind of bugs me most about being associated with the millennials, right, is this idea that, you're and I don't know if this is because I just am an old soul or something, but I don't want to keep jumping from position to position at different companies, right? That's not something that interests me. I wanted, and I'm different than other people in this regard, right? Because I very much would, if I wasn't, so my first job out of college, I'd probably still be working there if I hadn't set myself on a trajectory to follow my goals and get my PhD and eventually get to where I am right now, right? And I will tell you this, I've said this to you before many times, right? You don't need to be the smartest person in the world or in the room. You don't need to be the most talented person on your team.
Nope.
You just need to work harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll outshine everybody because hard work wins. Now, the real issue that you have to worry about are those people that are the smartest people in the room and are super talented and also work extremely hard.
Right.
And those are the people that that change things.
Worked
right
with
there.
some of those, and those are the guys that are working on things like one guy that I know that's working on like these self-healing solar panels and some really, really cool cutting edge tech stuff. They're solving some problems that are...
I would like a self-healing windshield. That's what I would like.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. That's a little harder to do, but
sure,
not actually entirely impossible.
But do you think that some seniors in college with a student version of SolidWorks could solve that problem in one academic year?
In that particular kind of problem, no.
No.
I can tell you that that particular problem will be solved by a genetically modified strain of probably actually S. cerevisiae, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or a common strain of yeast from which we get brewer's yeast. But that's actually a
beer once again is the solution to the problem.
Ultimately, there are some aspects of Futurama that are not entirely inaccurate. But yeah,
it's a smart show.
They're using variations of this already to heal concrete right now, because those microbes, when exposed to oxygen, they come out of like a sporulated state, start to regrow, and as they regrow and metabolize the materials around them, they excrete compounds that can actually fill in cracks in concrete. So they could do something similar in windshields, but here it would be a very difficult environment for them. But if they're sporulated, they could actually survive the heat here. The trick would be the UV. But anyway, that's a whole range of problems. So no, a group of students in high school could not solve this with a SolidWorks license in an academic year.
Seniors in like a capstone project.
As a capstone
maybe
project,
this is better
it would
for
be
a Tuesday meeting.
Yeah, this one would be. Let's save that for a Tuesday meeting. So yeah, there's a lot of really. There's a lot of other rabbit holes we could go down there, but I think that's a reasonable point to end on, is exactly what you're saying about the focus on the end goal and work towards whatever that is, and then when you get there,
there's a reason.
You can reevaluate and look to see if this is where you wanted to be and where you thought you would be, or if you need to make some course adjustments, right? And you and I, having kind of both climbed our respective ladders to the very top and seen, what's up there and how the sausage is made, we've learned an awful lot of things along the way. So
this is part of the learning too, right? If you assess, you need to constantly be assessing what your views on success are, because they are going to change. All right, 20-year-old me has a very different views of what is successful from 37-year-old me.
True story.
Okay? So
true story.
I mean, so just keep that in mind. When you were 10, you wanted to. Whatever you wanted to be an astronaut, or be whatever it is that you wanted to be, and that's fine. But at a certain point, some people either follow through with that, or see that maybe that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah. And
some of us, that's like a 1%er job anyway. Like they're not even hiring for that right now, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a sidetrack. What I'm getting at is, even your perception of success is going to change, and so therefore you have made a mistake already in assuming that you knew what you wanted 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because now 10 years in the future you want something else,
right?
So you've already made the mistake. Okay, so future you is going to look back and say that you were a fool for wanting that, because now that you've gotten it, right? That's the other thing. Be careful not to just chase things. I would highly recommend setting yourself a success goal that is more metaphysical than actually physical.
Yeah, because I actually at one point put together like a 10-year goal list, and one of those was owning like a Ford Focus RS or something, because it was still like a concept car, right? And it's a little like 350 horse or 400 horse, depending on how you have it tuned and tweaked, little all-wheel drive rocket ship of a car that can fit for, I mean, it can, but if you've ever had to Uber in a Focus,
for what?
2 humans and two amputees is really kind of like, that's if your friends have knees and they want to get in the back, you could be. So that also goes for car seats, because we've already talked about car seats being astronomical in size, which is a good thing, because we want to protect our children, but they don't fit in small cars. They just don't. They're not going to. There's no amount of, unless you're literally hugging the steering wheel, which is dangerous for you as the driver. So that shifted, and that's a case in point example. So the summary is set goals, and I like your step 1 and step 2 there in the chat. The idea that you need to start by identifying what is success going to be for you, and then figure out how you're going to get there, not setting it on the stuff perspective, the materialism perspective, but setting it on what do you want to end up with at the end, and how does that work? What do you need to get there? What tools are you missing? Those are the things that you want to pay attention to.
Consequently, I would be probably the most boring lottery winner of all time, right, based on my views of success right now, because I would probably buy a house straight cash, right, and then use the rest of it to pay the taxes the rest of my life.
Right, you would pay things off, and so that's a difference maybe between, and so you and I are similar in that, right? Like I would probably still find a way to buy a Viper, for instance.
I mean,
cash
I would spend some of it, but like I would buy
but the rest of it would
I wouldn't get. You bet your butt I wouldn't be getting a mortgage,
right?
Like on a house I can't afford,
right? Which is why most of these people go broke. Setting the wrong kinds of goals.
Mortgage is because you can't afford to buy it straight out.
Right.
If you could afford to buy it straight out,
right.
Then why would you get yourself into more debt?
That turns into a self-defeating proposition, and so you and I are very similar in that regard, where we would pay the things for cash, and in a lot of ways I think you and I would focus more on the side of using what we could of that to purchase assets,
I would actually
rather than liabilities.
I'd probably buy land and then build a house on the land.
Yeah.
So all the money would just go into that.
That would suck up all of the lottery winnings quickly. But
again, I'm very old school in that maybe this is my rural Italian roots coming out, right? But in my grandfather's village, what you would do with your money is you would literally buy building supplies and bring them to your land, and like that's like you would invest in bricks. Yeah, that's how you did it. Yeah. So you literally brick by brick would build your house. Yeah. And that's so that is a very different sort of strategy than what we have today. So yeah, that's another good point to kind of be closing on, is focusing more on the metaphysical stuff, the development, and how you're going to reach the goals, and not so much on how can I hurry up and accumulate the most debt possible to do the things that I'm doing, right? Because that's all stuff that's going to
keep you from being able to do the goals that future you wants to be able to do. And that's why we're hammering on that, because future you is going to want to go back and kick past you's butt over some of those kinds of decisions that are like, oh, look what I can afford. That is going to really hinder future you's ability to achieve the goals if you're not careful and really kind of thinking through your decisions.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about being. So all right, so let me phrase it this way. If you look at there's a reason why the book Habits of Successful People is an actual book, right? If it's true, if you look at people that you consider successful, they all have specific habits that they all share in common, right? And I guarantee you that the number one that they all share in common is that they work extremely hard and they make mistakes probably on a daily basis. You can watch old interviews with Steve Jobs, right? When he first took back over at Apple, right? And he's like, look, we're going to make mistakes. Am I going to know everything about everything all the time? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm going to push us towards growth. And that's, based on the things that I do know and the top people that I hire are telling me, right? So work hard, set goals, work hard. I should have charged you $3,000 for this class.
Right.
But
100%.
That's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get out of all of them. It's just life coach. Look, I'll life coach you right now. Right. Are you working hard?
Life coaches make me so angry.
Are you making excuses to me?
They would say I have a session for that, right?
Yeah. You know how much? Look, I'll start a life coaching business. You don't even need to be certified to do that, right?
Right.
I need more certification to be a surveyor of land than I do.
True story.
To tell you how to live your life.
Flipping ridiculous, but there's all kinds of courses available. So I think we need to end on that because there's going to be a lot of other topics. Like I said, there's a lot of rabbit holes on this one, so I think that's a reasonable stopping point.
1,000 likes. Was it 1,000? I don't remember.
Yeah.
100. Let's go with 100 likes.
If we get to
100 likes, and we'll do the
likes.
reptilian episode.
That's right. That's still hanging out
still
there.
On the table. Still
That's
on
right.
the table.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in, especially the 3 or 4 people that'll watch this in the future. And eventually we'll work on the actual promotion and stuff and work on building the subscriber count and viewership and stuff. But for right now, we're just trying to get some of the important stuff laid down as a foundation.
Sure.
So, that's right.
Seems about right. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
That's supposed to be a thumbs up, but you can't
Have a good one. That's right. You can't see it.
See ya.
Waiting for it. Waiting for the sign off with the delays. There we go.